Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to BWP Encore Radio! It is I, your host as always, BWP's technical saviour to the masses, and 2016 Secret Superhero Award winner, CD famously, Chris Dutton. And joining me as always, he is allegedly the hardest working and best looking referee in British wrestling today. He is not Max Davis.
There's no allegedly about it, Chris. I am the hardest working and best looking referee in British wrestling history. Get it right. There is no allegedly about it, my friend.
So he says. I'll leave that up to you, listeners.
Right, so Chris, how are you keeping? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm here on Skype. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm on Skype again. Nothing to do with the weather. Just that I didn't really want to see Chris face to face.
He's on Skype and he's on tea. He's not getting drunk tonight because we know what happens when Max has a few.
Yeah.
I can't afford to lose another co-host.
And it will shortly be on the BWP network, drunk commentary with me, Max Davis. I'm not sure, and I can't remember how that went. So,
well,
go one of two ways.
Yeah, I've been very busy. There's a lot of controversy coming out of last weekend's Grand Central Rumble. I've had my back and forths with quite a few people on Facebook and social media over this. I'm sure we're going to get into it later. I have got a lot to say, and I'm sure you have as well, Max.
I have plenty to say. Okay, so Chris, shall we kick off with the first match, the opening match of the night from the Grand Central Rumble, Grand Central Hall, Liverpool?
Right, yeah, and before we kick off going through the Rumble card, I should probably say there's been a lot of discussion about this, the situation, the events that went down last weekend, obviously in Liverpool, very controversial. We've had a lot of questions to our Facebook page about this. All I will say is we have a prepared statement from BWP management, and we are going to read that to you exclusively at the end of this show, so stay tuned, guys.
Yeah, you know, there's been a huge public outcry about some of the events that went on at the Grand Central Rumble there, Chris. It's a huge public outcry. I've never known such a reaction from the BWP faithful before, Chris. It's unreal, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, really, there's a lot of buzz coming from this show, and I mean, obviously, it was a hell of a show, and I urge anyone that wasn't lucky enough to be in the Dome to get onto the BWP network and watch that show. It is online already, record turnaround time to get this show out and get it on demand, but it is live. You can stream it right now for just $3.99. It is probably the best $3.99 you'll ever spend. It's the price of a pint, and it is just, I'd say, I mean, I might be slightly biased, but I will go out on a limb and say that's probably the biggest show we've ever held.
It is, yeah. It is by far the biggest BWP show in the 9 years that BWP have been running. To come from Llandurnog, a small village in between Denbigh and Ruthin, that they sold out on the night, I think it holds something like 100, maybe 140, all the way to the Grand Central Hall in Liverpool. It's just a testimony to exactly what Steve Saxon and the rest of the BWP management have done.
Absolutely, Max. I mean, I would hesitate to say a sellout. It was just absolutely jam-packed. You could not fit another body in that dome. It was just an incredible evening, and I urge anyone just go back and watch it. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, it is available, like Chris said, on the BWP network. You can get the details of which from visiting www.britanniawrestling.co.uk. You'll find all the links to the BWP network there. For £3.99 a month, it's a deal not to be missed, ladies and gentlemen. You really, really need to get the BWP network to keep right up to date with all the ins and outs of Britannia Wrestling Promotions.
Okay, Max, and having said that, I think we should probably get into discussing the Rumble now. Do you want to start us off with our first match of the evening?
Yeah, okay, so the first matchup, Chris, was a four-way tag elimination match for the PWI World Tag Team Championships. It was contested by the team of the Wonderland, Pyro and Ry Lloyd, Them Telling Boys, and the champions, the Island Brothers. First of all, when Wonderland made their entrance to the ring, Chris, they had a manager or a handler of sorts who found out how hard it is to cut a promo in front of the Liverpool fans.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, I got to be honest with you, I couldn't spend the whole amount of time backstage on Friday night. I was so busy with the tech and everything. But this guy, I don't know, do we have any idea who this guy is?
No, apart from the fact that he wears a gimp mask. No, I actually thought it was you because you like wearing that type of mask. Yeah.
Max, I have better things to do on Friday night, I'm afraid. Maybe, at the weekend, but on a show day, I'm very professional.
Right, okay. I'll believe you. Millions wouldn't. So they cut a promo. That was followed by them telling his boys who made the world's longest entrance.
What an entrance!
But it was over as fuck. The crowd went mental. The crowd loved it.
I got to say now, I am tempted to cut that out and put it onto our YouTube channel for the fans to see. Because if I was to show one moment off from that show without technically giving away any spoilers, it would be that. Because the reaction that Bert and Dave got when they came through that curtain was just incredible.
It was. They really, really know how to fire the fans up, don't they? Brilliant job by them. So the match started, and the match to begin with was just one huge clusterfuck. I could not keep control of that match at all, not even if I wanted to.
One thing I will say, the last thing I expected to see in Liverpool was Disco Bert doing a suicide dive through the ropes.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up, Chris. He did a suicide dive, but he didn't do it with his own partner, Dave the Rave. He did it with Pyro. That's even more unusual. They were working together, yet they should be opposite. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that was just a sign of things to come for this match.
It was, because it was so fast-paced. There was bodies flying everywhere. It was one of the best four-way elimination tag matches I've ever had the privilege to ref.
Yeah, I mean, we did a run-through, we did a preview of this on our last show, on our last episode, and I remember saying at the time that this was going to be just a crazy, crazy match, and probably, I said to you at the time, you were probably going to struggle to maintain order, and fair enough, actually, you did a pretty good job maintaining order there, but you certainly had your work cut out with all these guys in there.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks, that means a lot, mate. You didn't do a bad job on the audio and production and all that.
I had some external help, shall we say, and it's taken me a while, but I'm starting to get to grips with it. So I think it went okay, but more point to yourself, Max. I mean, I don't put you over very often. I know we have our differences, but compared to that fucking rookie ref Johnny Goodman, I mean, you did a stellar job on Friday evening, all things considered.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I will say you kind of faltered a little bit in the Rumble match itself. We'll get to that, but fair dues to you, Max.
We'll come on to that shortly because I need to speak to you about that because of Well, not all of us, but those that were there and those who have watched the footage, hopefully you can now appreciate how hard, how difficult my job is. Anyway, back to the first match at hand, Chris. Those Talon boys were, unfortunately for the crowd, they were eliminated first by the Wonderland. The Wonderland using their patented through the looking glass finishing maneuver.
Well, I will say one thing to you, Max. One point, a very important point I made out on our last show. I said them Talents boys need to spend a little bit less time dancing and a little bit more time wrestling. And I tell you what, they brought the goods on Friday evening. But how long was that entrance? About 5 minutes long. If they spent a little bit more time saving their energy and not goofing around for the crowd, maybe they would have lasted a little bit longer. What do we think about that?
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there, Chris. They did spend an awful lot of time on their entrance. However, that being said, they are very good wrestlers as well. It's just, I think because the caliber of teams that were involved in this match, we could be saying it about any of them. Any of them could have, one of them had to go first. You know what I mean?
Speaking of caliber of teams, Max, I mean, I know I've had my differences and opinions about Ry Lloyd and Pyro, the two of them, but I mean, they were effectively, they eliminated Wonderland next in this match, and being, Wonderland still to the BWP audience, they're kind of an unknown. We haven't seen them a lot recently. I mean, I don't know where they've been gone all this time. I mean, clearly they found themselves a manager or an advocate of some kind. But I mean, it didn't do them that much good because, they got eliminated next.
Yeah, they did. And that was after Ry Lloyd had taken a very, very nasty bump on the outside of the ring as well, courtesy of Grod. But yeah, the Wonderland were eliminated by Pyro and Ry Lloyd with a sunset flip super kick combo.
Yeah, that is one thing I noticed. They really, this time around, we've seen them tag a few times now, but really, this time around, we really saw them bringing that teamwork into things. It looks like they almost took what I said on our last episode to heart, and they've been working together to come up with more tandem offense, and clearly it did pay off here. So really, as a team, they're gelling much better together than the last time we saw them.
Yeah, they are. Indeed, they are, Chris. They must obviously be listening to your advice on BWP Encore Radio.
Clearly.
So that left two teams left. It was Ry and Pyro, and of course the champions, the Island Brothers. Pyro actually becomes distracted towards the end of this match because Wonderland actually kidnap Ry Lloyd.
Well, you see that was a rookie mistake by Pyro. He shouldn't have taken his attention off of who was in the ring. I mean, yeah, I get it, Ry's his partner, but at the end of the day, he was in the ring and Ry Lloyd was not, and he needed to keep his attention on his opponents, because when you take your eyes off the Island Brothers, and this is something I said last time, I said, yeah, despite the caliber of all the teams, and there's a lot of talent and power in that ring, the Island Brothers are your tag team champions, and I said anyone is going to have their work cut out to take those belts from the Island Brothers, and Pyro just for a split second took his attention off of the Island Brothers, and it cost him the match.
Yeah, you're spot on the money again, Chris. He did get distracted. The Island Brothers took full advantage of that, hit Pyro with their finisher, and the winners, and still the BWP World Tag Team Champions, the Island Brothers. They pulled it off. And I do recall you saying that your money was on them for this, Chris.
I believe that is 1-0 to me.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is indeed.
Things are looking up. Thank you very much.
Your 20 pence is in the post.
All right.
So we'll move on to the next match, Chris, which was delicious Danny Hope versus Dylan Roberts. So when Dylan Roberts made his entrance, the crowd was really getting on his back there, Chris. He really did not look happy at all. And the beginning of the match was very much a stalemate early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, as we've seen on previous shows in Liverpool, Dylan Roberts isn't exactly the most liked individual in Liverpool, and Danny Hope is beloved in Liverpool, so it was kind of a hostile environment for one Dylan Roberts. And I think that he was kind of letting the crowd's reaction get to him a little bit. He kind of felt a little bit off his game to start with.
Yeah, it was. And it was a hard fought back and forth match as well, Chris. So towards the end, Danny Hope hits his patented spinning power slam and then goes for the top rope to hit the savage elbow drop, only to be attacked by behind with a steel chair by Joey Hayes.
Yeah, and this to me was kind of a disappointment because this was a match that I was personally looking forward to, and it felt just as it was getting into that top gear, it ended under unfortunate circumstances, really. I mean, I don't know quite what motivated Joey Hayes to attack him at that particular moment. Clearly, it cost him in the long run, but, Yeah,
so the winner was Delicious Danny Hope via disqualification. But Joey Hayes continued to attack Danny post-match with a chair. All three referees were out in the ring trying to calm the situation down. Steve Saxon also came out, and as a punishment, Steve Saxon named Joey Hayes as the entrant number 1 into the Rumble match, the main event that night.
Yeah, and the look on Joey's face kind of said it all, really. I think that's the point where he kind of realised that he'd made a mistake. I mean, obviously, Joey, I don't condone your actions, but personally, I would have waited for the Rumble match if you wanted to attack Danny. Clearly, it cost you there. Yeah, and obviously, following this is something that I really don't understand, Max. Dylan Roberts, I guess, maybe just frustrated that Joey just cost him the match. Obviously, Danny Hope is your winner by disqualification. Shall we say he just felt the need to take his revenge on Joey, and he gave him. It looked like they were going to work together for a moment there, and he just spine busted Joey. And I.
Let me stop you there, Chris. I know Dylan very well. Dylan is a man's man. He doesn't want any help in that Rumble. He can do it all by himself. He's done it before, and he was going to try again to do it on that night.
Yeah, regardless, Max, I think that maybe these Liverpool fans have been getting to Dylan. Clearly, he has too much of an ego to just let himself be hated by these fans. He has to try and get them on his side for whatever reason. I don't think Dylan Roberts needs the fans. I think he's just a top professional wrestler on his own. He doesn't need these Liverpool fans. I don't know why he would try and gain their appreciation by doing that. I don't think Joey deserved that personally. His issue is with Danny Hope. So what if it cost him a loss? He got his chance later in the Rumble like everybody else.
Dylan is a top-class wrestler, Chris. There's no doubt about that. But he is also one of the nicest people towards the fans. He loves the fans. He realises that this business is about the fans. So I think you're full of shit there, mate. I really do.
Yeah, well, if there's one thing that Friday evening taught me, Max, it's nice guys finish last.
Well, yeah, that might be a lesson that you've learned. And it might be a lesson that a lot of other people have learned. But let's not jump the gun here, mate. We'll get to that later. So the following match, Chris, was match 3. It was Frankie Sloan, the 20-year veteran, versus Magnus, the former TNA and current Global Force World Wrestling Champion.
Not to mention, Max, Magnus is a former tag team partner of Frankie Sloan.
Of course, Frankie and Magnus did tag before Magnus left to work in America.
Yeah, and I think this understanding of each other really came into itself in this match, because in my opinion, this was one of the matches of the night, an absolute technical masterclass.
It was a very technical match, both men using pure wrestling techniques. It was a pleasure to watch and a pleasure to officiate, Chris. One of the highlights for me, Chris, was a crossbody attempt by Frankie Sloan. Magnus caught him midair and then just manhandled him with pure power straight up into the suplex position and then suplexed him.
Yeah, I mean, Magnus is an absolute monster. I mean, there's a reason he's a former Global Force and TNA heavyweight champion. When it came down to the wire, though, I mean...
This match could have gone either way, Chris. It was that close right up until the very end.
Yeah, absolutely, Max. And when it came down to it, those years of experience for Frankie Sloan just weren't enough. Magnus caught his sunset flip, turned it into a cloverleaf, and got a pretty quick tap-out victory.
It was a very, very quick tap-out, to be fair. I thought Frankie could have held on just for a few more seconds, maybe even just reach out for that rope. But I know, after speaking to Frankie backstage after that match, that cloverleaf was cinched in deep and he was in so much pain. He had no other option other than to tap out.
One thing I will say, Max, is I know I'm kind of an advocate for people bending the rules to their advantage. I kind of like the bad guy here, but it was a nice moment to see former tag team partners having just wrestled a classic technical match, celebrating together for the fans after the match. That was a really nice moment to see.
Yeah, it was classy from both wrestlers. You know, they embraced in the ring, they shook hands, and it was just a classy move by both. And they both showed exactly what experienced and such good-natured sportsmen they both are. And of course, the winner of the match was Magnus.
It absolutely was, and I will say, if anyone is a fan of the British style of technical wrestling, to really get on demand, and I may even release this match as a freebie in a couple of months' time, because it is a cracking match, and if you're a fan of that style of wrestling, you won't be disappointed.
No, indeed not. So if you want to watch this match, ladies and gentlemen, get on the BWP network for only $3.99 a month. So the next matchup, Chris, was match number 4 on the card. It was the Red Right Hand, comprised of the leader, Don Micho, the brawn of Dave Del Vecchio, and the speed and agility of Sona Dursun, versus the babyface Pitbull, Roughneck, and making his pro wrestling debut, UFC legend, Liverpool's very own Dave Faulkner.
this really for me was the curiosity of the evening. Obviously, the fact Dave Faulkner, former UFC mixed martial arts superstar, making his professional wrestling debut, a real, obviously one of the main attractions of this card, and one that I was really, and we said this before on the previous episode, really curiosity of how he would take that experience of being within the octagon and translate it into a wrestling ring. And I gotta say, I was impressed.
I was very impressed as well. Some of them suplexes, which I'll come on to in a bit, were absolutely brutal, but performed with absolute precision. We've got to remember as well, in this match, we had Don Micho, a former PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion. We had the babyface Pitbull, the current PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion. We also had Sonna Dursum, who is a BWP Young Dragon. The ability of all 6 men in this match was absolutely crazy.
Not to mention Dave Delvecchio, a former tag team champion himself.
Of course, how can I forget about DDB?
That's what I'm here for, Max. Yeah, and one thing that I remember saying to you before, Max, and I'm sure our listeners will remember it, is I was curious how it would compare having the experienced unit and team of the Red Right Hand versus essentially 3 people who have never teamed up before in a tag team contest. And I gotta say, give them credit where it's due. These 3 really took it to the Red Right Hand.
Yeah, they did. Early on, they really had the upper hand early on in this match. Do you want to know a fun fact here, Chris?
Not really, but I'm sure you're going to tell me anyway.
Yeah, fun fact. Dave Faulkner was lined up to be CM Punk's first UFC fight. However, it was turned down because Dave Faulkner was far too experienced to go up against CM Punk. Did you know that?
I will tell you something, Max. I did actually know that, but having heard that now, again, and refreshing that in my memory, it makes me wonder, obviously CM Punk, a world-class professional wrestler in himself, you have to wonder, were the Red Right Hand themselves aware of this, and did they kind of factor that information in when preparing for this match? The fact that Dave Faulkner was deemed too much of a badass to fight CM Punk, did they really think that this was going to be a cakewalk taking on Faulkner?
Yeah, it was never going to be easy for them going up against Dave Faulkner. He is one of the best MMA specialists there is in the country, and once a combat sports specialist, always a combat sports specialist, regardless of whether it's MMA, kickboxing, boxing, or wrestling. It's still a combat sport, Chris.
Absolutely, Max. Once you have those skills, you can apply them absolutely any manner, what profession you're in.
So, okay, one thing that became evident to me by watching the footage back, Chris, was that the Red Right Hand were using their usual tactics of distracting the ref to gain control. So after the upper hand early on was had by Roughneck, Pitbull and Faulkner, because of distraction of the ref, the Red Right Hand managed to get on top. Johnny then misses a tag made by Pitbull on Faulkner.
Johnny misses. Are we honestly surprised?
Well, I'm not going to get into that.
There's a reason you're head referee, Max Davis.
I've missed plenty of my time as well, mate, don't you worry. Johnny then ejects Faulkner from the ring, leaving a battered and bruised Pitbull in the hands of the Red Right Hand.
Yeah, and this is the point where we really see, their experience as a unit come together, and they basically isolated the babyface Pitbull.
Yeah, they did. They cut that ring right into and kept the babyface Pitbull exactly where they wanted him. Eventually, of course, the babyface Pitbull does make a tag to Dave Faulkner. Dave Faulkner comes in and hits some of the most brutal suplexes I've ever seen. At one point, I thought he'd killed Sonna Dursum. He dropped Sonna Dursum right on his cranium.
Yeah, and this is a testament to Sonna Dursum, the toughness of Sonna Dursum. He got right back up. Because when you're initiated into that Red Right Hand, you do not stay down. You get up and you keep fighting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I know you've been spending a lot of time with the Red Right Hand, so my next point, I don't think you're going to like, Chris, was, of course, the finish to the match, which was the babyface Pitbull and Dave Faulkner hit a doomsday device maneuver on Don Micho to allow Faulkner to pin Micho and pick up the victory for the babyface Pitbull, Roughneck, and himself.
Yes, they did, and there's one thing I never thought I would see in a wrestling ring. It is Dave Faulkner coming off the top rope with a doomsday device. I never thought I would see that. I mean, I knew we were going to see him get very physical. I knew he was going to really play that ground game and throw a lot of devastating suplexes, but I never thought I would see him come off that top rope.
It's just a testament to the amount of work and training that the babyface Pitbull and Roughneck have put in to getting Dave Faulkner ready for his pro wrestling debut, to be fair, Chris.
Yeah, and I mean, I almost feel we've spoken so much about the babyface Pitbull and Faulkner, I kind of feel like I'm leaving Roughneck out. I mean, he really did play his role in this match. He really, really took it to the red right hand.
He did, and it's good to have such a bad guy backing you up, isn't it, Chris?
Well, I wouldn't know, Max. I fight my own battles, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay. You prick. Okay, so that leaves just one more match left, Chris. Of course, it was the main event. It was the Grand Central Rumble, the 30-man over-the-top rope Rumble.
Yeah, of course, and this being the main attraction of the event. Obviously, shall we just say, for anyone that's forgotten, it lived up the very first ever Rumble match to be held in Liverpool, which itself is a absolute massive deal. I am so honoured that we got the opportunity to put this on for the fans in Liverpool, because, I mean, obviously, I think we're going to be here for quite a while going through this match, but it really was a spectacle, and the messages that I've personally received from our BWP faithful, you know, saying that they watched a very, so we say, similar match on Sunday evening put on by another company, shall we say, and actually complimenting us for actually having the better match of the two, which makes me very proud.
Yeah, and we had the better number 30 as well, didn't we? Let's be honest.
Yes, we did.
So we had the special guest ring announcer for the Rumble. It was BBC Radio Merseyside's very own Billy Butler.
Yeah, and for anyone that may have caught it, any of the BWP faithful that may have listened, the superstars of BWP were actually at the BBC in Liverpool in the afternoon and were on the air with Billy Butler.
Yeah, of course, Chris. We were there. We were in the green room. We were looking straight through the glass, listening to them live on there. And it was such an experience for, you know, me and you. These guys, they do it all the time. They get out there, they promote this stuff. We haven't really done that before. Who needs to listen to a referee? Who needs to listen to a production guy? But it was really nice to be there. It was a lovely experience.
Well, do you know what, Max? Unfortunately, you are right. They wouldn't allow us into the studio, which for me is a little bit disappointing because I, as always, had plenty to get off my chest that afternoon. But luckily for us, Max, and luckily for all the listeners out there, you can listen to us exclusively right here on BWP Encore Radio.
Of course, Steve Saxon was supposed to be in the green room with us, but Billy Butler told Steve Saxon if he wasn't to go into the studio, then BWP were going on the air.
Well, I don't think that would have been such a bad thing, Max, because could you imagine if they hadn't gone on the air at BWP? We could have had our own special episode of BWP Encore Radio from live in Liverpool.
Don't you be ripping on Billy Butler. Billy Butler's good and he did a fantastic job.
I mean, you're only little, Max. I'm surprised you didn't sneak in with him. You could have said you were his kid or something. I mean, I don't think he'd had a shave by that point, but I'm sure you would have gotten away with it. I'm sure there's plenty of hairy kids in Liverpool.
Whoa. Do you really want to go back to Liverpool? Do you want to be saying shit like that live on air, Chris?
We're booked in, mate, for 2 more dates. I got nothing to worry about.
We're booked in for more than 2 more dates, mate.
That the faithful are aware of.
Yeah, that the faithful are aware of. Right, okay. So before we start going into this match, I'll give you the rundown, the list of the competitors from number 1 to number 30. So at number 1, as we already know and have discussed, Joey Hayes. Number 2, Roy Lloyd. Number 3, Disco Burt. Number 4, Pyro. Number 5, Chris Von Sharp. Number 6, Seth Skyline. Number 7, Grod of the Wonderland. Number 8, Roughneck. Number 9, Mothman. Number 10, The Pie Man Drill. Number 11, Noah. Number 12, Frankie Sloan. Number 13, Dave the Rave Desire. Number 14, Sexy Kev. Number 15, Mr. Williams. Number 16, Don Micho. Number 17, Taboo of the Island Brothers. Number 18, Matt Fox. Number 19, Dylan Roberts. Number 20, Rio of the Island Brothers. Number 21, Delicious Danny Hope. Number 22, Dean McManus. Number 23, Sonna Durson. Number 24, Drew Parker. Number 25, Dave Del Vecchio. Number 26, Troy McCarthy. Number 27, making his BWP debut, Sean Only. Number 28, BBC radio producer for the Billy Butler Show, David North. Number 29, Miles Johnson. And of course, number 30, miles better than Roman Reigns, it is Dave Faulkner.
My God, Max. I was able to go for a nap you took so long. You were still going when I came back.
Well, it's a long list, Chris. There's 30 of them, mate. So starting straight off the bat, number 1 and number 2, Joey Hayes, Roy Lloyd. Roy Lloyd eliminated within seconds of the opening bell, leaving Joey Hayes in the ring alone, and he was left to mock Stone Cold Steve Austin, sat on the top turnbuckle looking at his wrist like it's a watch.
I love you so much for making that reference, Max. I really do. But one thing I will say, Ry Lloyd, and I hate to keep going back to this every time, but I really don't think I need to say any more than Ry Lloyd, really? How long was that? 20 seconds, maybe 30 at a push? Really?
The fans at the Dome were absolutely shocked. They were in complete silence. No one saw that coming. I didn't see it coming. Might
I add, winner of the last Summer Rumble and previous 5-minute long former PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion. Woo! Ry Lloyd, 30 seconds. Well, that really... I have nothing else to say on that one.
Why do you hate on Ry Lloyd so much?
Well, let's just say I don't completely agree with his morals and his work ethic, shall we say. I think that Ry Lloyd is sometimes a little bit too nice for his own good, and I think too often it's come back to bite him, and I think this really... I mean, last summer was the best example of that, Max. He was champion for all of 5 minutes, but really, I mean, this, if anything, was even more poetic and more of an explanation of that, because just watch it back and see for yourself. I mean, really, 30 seconds, Ry Lloyd, honestly. I think he needs a change of attitude. I think it's a change that should hopefully come sooner rather than later, because before he blows any more opportunities, to be honest, Max. This was his chance to get back into the title hunt, which he had given up on since his previous loss as Catchweight Champion. He never invoked his rematch. This was his chance to get back in the honourable way, and he blew it.
Yeah, he did, but I don't think it was through any fault of his own. I don't think he'd jump over the top rope, did he? He was thrown over the top rope by the Northern heel Joey Hayes. Who, of course, was in a really foul mood because he was placed in the Rumble as number 1.
It's admirable that he wanted to get his opportunity back, the right way, the honest way. But I think it's going to be a while now before we see him back in that world title hunt. I honestly think that he's blown his opportunity. I think he should take the fact that he is the current champion of Wales a little more seriously and take it a little bit more seriously in the ring, because that is not what you would expect a current champion, a current title holder. You would not expect that to happen to a current champion. You'd expect them to be on the ball, a little bit more ring aware of what they're doing and where they are. The fact that they're in an opportunity, in a situation where, both your feet hit that floor, you are eliminated, you are gone. That is your opportunity out the window for God knows how long more, and it's cost him. And I hope this is a reality check to Ryloid, and he comes back with a different state of mind and a different attitude, because I really think this has been a wake-up call for him. I mean, you saw the look on his face when he got eliminated. His head was in his hands. He was honestly shocked, surprised, and I think this might be what he needs to really knock some sense into the lad and understand that he needs to take this game a little bit more seriously.
I don't necessarily agree with your views there, Chris, but only time will tell for what's in store for Ryloid. I tell you, the next thing that caught my eye, Chris, was Seth Skyline was in the ring, and every time he was almost eliminated, his tag team partner, Troy McCarthy, was on the outside helping him out. There's nothing I can do about it as a referee. There was nothing Phil could do as a referee. There was nothing Johnny can do as a referee, because it's perfectly within the rules.
I'll tell you something, Max. The band, obviously, they're newcomers to, as a team at least, to BWP. We saw them obviously last month in Denby making their debut, their Liverpool debut here in the Rumble. And let me just say, these lads have got it right. These lads are going to go places. I think it's only a matter of time. The way that these guys work together, I think it's only a matter of time before we see the band as potential future tag team champions.
You know what? I couldn't agree more with you. These guys are rocking.
Unfortunately, they were unsuccessful in this Rumble, which means no world title shots, but that's okay because they
they can concentrate on being a tag team, just what they are.
Absolutely, Max, and that is exactly the point I was about to make.
Oh, sorry, did I preempt you?
Yes, you stole my thunder again, but it's okay, I've got plenty more opportunities to steal your thunder, Max, coming right up in this episode. So carry on, by all means.
So the next thing that really caught my eye and really made me stand back, and actually my jaw hit the floor at this point, was Roughneck pressing Chris Von Sharp over the top rope, just dumping him to the floor like a sack of shit, Chris.
I tell you what, Max. I've previously called myself a fearless man, but Roughneck is not one to be fucked with. That is not an individual that I would want to come across in a dark alley. Let me just say that. And I have had my fair share of experiences of dark alleys, Max, but he is not one guy that you would want to mess with. I would not want to be dropped on my head from about 10 feet in the air like poor Chris Von Sharp.
Did you just say you've had your experiences of dark alleys?
Like I said, Max, what I get up to at the weekends is neither yours nor the faithful's business. I will keep that all to myself. Let's keep this entirely professional. Thank you very much.
Why am I not surprised? Right, so Chris, after Chris Von Sharp was dumped unceremoniously on his head to the outside, Roughneck then eliminates Seth Skyline. And he also eliminates Grod. He was on a roll. He was a man on a mission.
Yes, he was. I think the win from earlier in the night must have really lit a fire under him, because I think he was intent on winning that Rumble and getting that title shot.
He was. And then, Chris, we did see another BWP debut in the Rumble. It was the debut of Mothman.
Yeah, there aren't many things anymore in pro wrestling. I've seen a lot. There really isn't a lot that can render me speechless. But I was stood there watching the Mothman make his his BWP debut in the Dome, and I was honestly speechless. That entrance video that he had created was honestly one of the creepiest things I have ever seen in my life.
Well, luckily for you, Chris, he was pretty much immediately eliminated by Roughneck after one of the hardest hitting spears that I've ever seen.
That's one word for it.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say bodge.
Yes.
Mothman doesn't know how to bump.
Yeah, poor Mothman. he was too fixated on trying to reach the lights above the ring in the arena. And unfortunately, being a moth and having that mentality, I mean, as we all do, being a moth, it cost him, and he was pretty much immediate. And here's the thing that surprised me, the amount of heat that elimination got from the Liverpool crowd. Honestly, for me, that was one of the loudest reactions of the evening, was the boos when Mothman was rather unceremoniously dumped over the top rope by Roughneck.
Yeah, with the help of Grod from the outside, I must add as well, Chris.
Indeed.
But you wouldn't have seen that from your position, would you?
No, but I have edited the show for On Demand, Max, so I have seen everything.
Oh, okay.
Let's not forget my valuable contribution. Let's not forget my valuable contributions to our wonderful promotion, Max.
So the next talking point was Drill tying Joey Hayes up in the middle of the ring and then force feeding him a pork pie, Chris. Can you imagine? This is supposed to be world-class entertainment and sportsmanship, and Drill just force feeds Joey Hayes a pork pie.
Well, I know earlier I kind of said not to bring up what I do at weekends, but honestly, I'm starting to question what Drill gets up to at weekends when he's not wrestling on our shows, because this was a new one to me. I didn't realise that. I guess, could you call it a pork pie fetish?
I don't know.
All I know is the faithful, the BWP faithful in the crowd didn't want any part of those pork pies. We don't know where they've been stuck or shoved. They were thrown straight back at Drill, and I gotta say, I would have done the same thing, because
there was projectiles all over the dome, ladies and gentlemen. Pork pies flying around like missiles.
Yeah, this was a new one for me. I know I said that the Mothman was a creepy situation, but this was just, I had no words for what happened to poor Joey in that ring. I feel for the guy, I really do.
So the next thing I'd like to talk about after that was Pyro and Noah actually eliminating each other, and they continued to brawl on the outside of the ring and through the crowd, Chris.
Yeah, obviously, you can expect a lot of hostility in these rumbles, people getting thrown out and eliminated and all kinds of things stemming from that. But luckily for me, being a technical saviour that I am, I had instructed our cameramen prior to the show. I had actually added an extra cameraman to ringside, and I instructed them. I said, if anything goes on, if anyone starts brawling or fighting or taking the action away from the ringside, you follow...
Chris, don't let me stop you from getting yourself over, mate.
You don't have to stop me, Max. I'm going to get my shit in regardless. I instructed my cameramen, if anything was to take away from that ringside area, you follow that action and you get those shots, because, I take our on-demand service very, very seriously, and I was not disappointed. They went, I don't know what, I lost track of them trying to see where they were going backstage. I know at one point, whoever that is with Wonderland slammed the door in our cameraman's face. I don't know what happened backstage after that. I don't know where they were going together, where they were brawling to. That is something that remains unanswered for me. I don't know if you've spoken to Pyro since the event. I don't know if you can understand Japanese.
I won't speak to Grod because he just grunts at me, and I won't speak to Pyro because he speaks Japanese and I don't. So it will remain a mystery until the end of time, Chris.
Well, we will leave that for our faithful to interpret. Unless one day maybe Drill will learn Japanese and we will get a special Drill Bits episode with the one and only Japanese sensation, Pyro.
Drill Bits, of course, being available on the BWP network for just $3.99 a month.
And that is a transition, if ever I have heard one, Max. Here is Drill right now, to tell you all about it.
Alright, how's it going? It's me, Drill, and I've got something to tell you. Drill Bits is now exclusively, that's right, I said exclusively, on the BWP network. I'm not being funny, right, but it's $3.99. Yeah, $3.99. It could buy you a few pies, that could buy you a pint. Oh, I do love a good pie and pint. Anyway, check out the BWP Facebook page or Britannia Wrestling website for a bit more info. Oh yeah, You know the BWP's on demand is on $3.99. Get it ordered now.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back from that ad break. The next talking point I want to bring up, Chris, about the Grand Central Rumble was Frankie Sloan almost very nearly eliminating Joey Hayes with the Frankie Special. Now, Chris, do you know what the Frankie Special is?
I know very well what it is. I'm sure, well, you obviously know what it is. I'm sure you've experienced it many times in your career, Max. I'm certain of that. Essentially, it is, well, I'll let you explain it because you're far more experienced than I am.
Right, well, I didn't know what it was until I seen it happen on Friday, Chris.
I feel that you're more qualified to explain this one to our listeners.
However, the only way I could describe it, I'll have to be frank, it's the only way I can describe it is a thumb up the bum.
It's a cheeky thumb up the hole and over the top rope. And yeah, unfortunately, that's not the way that I would want to be eliminated personally if I was going to be in the Rumble.
Well, Joey Hayes, luckily for Joey Hayes managed to hang on.
Maybe,
He must have been given quite a bit of resistance to Frankie Sloan's thumb during that.
Yeah, he's just got an arse of steel, Max, to be able to withstand that and to manage to grab hold of that rope. Maybe it's a situation Joey's been in before. I don't know.
I couldn't tell you. Frankie Sloan then went on to eliminate Grill.
Was that also via Frankie Special, Max? Do you know?
No, it was not Frankie Special.
Did he shove a pork pie up his bum?
No. No one was shoving anything up anyone's bum.
That we know of.
That we know of until the introduction of Mr. Williams into this match, which we will go over in great detail shortly. So, yeah, Frankie Sloan eliminates Drill before them telling boys actually put on a bit of a dirty dancing type of dance for the crowd, which the crowd loved, by the way. They were then joined by Sexy Kev, who came out. He did a bit of a provocative dance for the ladies in the crowd. Chris, let me tell you, I know for certain that after Sexy Kev had done that dance, there was not a dry female seat in the house.
And I'm assuming, Max, that you including yourself in that, because I was watching you very carefully when this was going down, and I saw the way you were looking at Sexy Kev. I saw that little twinkle in your eye, that admiration, that lust. And I gotta say, Max, I was thoroughly disgusted at your actions. I mean, we don't need this kind of thing in the BWP ring, let's be honest.
I was merely doing my job, Chris. I was watching the action in the ring. I was doing nothing else. I was calling as impartial as I can, straight down the middle. There was no lust in my eyes. You must have been looking at someone else. No lust at all in my eyes.
I mean,
what was happening in that ring?
I saw a referee shirt. To be fair, it could have been Johnny, but I was keeping a very close. I was keeping a very close eye on where you were putting your hands. Let me just say that much.
My hands were on the ring at all times.
Were they?
Yes.
On the ring.
So anyway, right, don't you be coming up with any puns there, Christopher.
I don't think I need to.
Anyway, Mr. Williams then comes out, Chris, before his buzzer in complete protest of the type of dancing Sexy Kev was doing. Because apparently sex education isn't on the syllabus until next term, Chris. He was then butt bashed, let's say, between them telling boys before a Frankie Special eliminated him from the match.
It seems to me that Bert and Dave, the Towns boys, kind of, this is something that they're used to doing. I mean, I don't know if this is, something they get up to, I don't know. But I feel sorry for Mr. Williams because, I mean, he's a top guy, and for anyone that listens to the On Demand or was there on the night, Mr. Williams was kind enough to lend his commentating prowess for the first half of the evening, which was always great to hear him trying to set everybody straight on the righteous ways of professional wrestling, and many F- were handed out. One thing I will say is, Clearly, obviously, he wasn't successful in staying in the Rumble. He got eliminated by this Frankie special. Clearly, obviously, he's inexperienced to this kind of act. This is not something that he will have had a previous experience to, which I'm glad to say. Unfortunate, because I think we could do with a champion like Mr. Williams. I think he knows the righteous ways of professional wrestling. Obviously, Mr. Williams, a class act, coming out here to save the faithful, and my eyes, not Max, my eyes, from this abomination in the ring. Sexy Kev doing whatever the hell he was doing. I don't know what you would call that, Max, you tell me. Unfortunately, unsuccessful. Got eliminated with a Frankie special, something I'm confident that he's not experienced of, clearly, because he was straight over the top rope. Didn't manage to cling on that Joey, unfortunately, because I think we could really use a champion like Mr. Williams.
But Mr. Williams is a bit of a killjoy, let's say. The crowd were loving the entertainment in the ring. What right did he have to come down to the ring in protest, before his buzzer, I might add, and just ruin it for everyone?
Because, Max, he didn't want he didn't want me to suffer any more having to watch that abomination in the ring. I know you were into it, Max. Like I said, I saw the twinkle in your eye. You were absolutely...
I told you must have been looking at Johnny. There was no twinkle in my eye. I was doing my job. That's why I'm the BWP head referee.
I saw the twinkle in Johnny's eye and the hands down your jocks, and I honestly, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to look away. And when I heard Mr. Williams coming out, I heard his voice. I thought, great, we're back on track. This Rumble is going to be a class act once again. We don't need any of this filth, any of this disgusting conduct in the ring. But no, unfortunately, Bert and Dave and Frankie had to ruin the fun and eliminate him straight away. I was very, very, very disappointed, I must say.
That leads me on to my next point there, Chris, because then Sexy Kev was eliminated by them Telling Boys. Apparently, they weren't very fond of his dancing, Chris.
Well, I mean, it's an acquired taste, obviously. Their style of dancing, shall we say, is a little bit different to Sexy Kev's style of dancing. I mean, personally, for me, it's all extremely homoerotic. We don't need that kind of thing in BWP, in British professional wrestling in general. We're trying to make a statement with British pro wrestling these days. We don't need filth like that. I think that maybe Bert and Dave might have seen the error of their ways and realised, hang on a minute, if we keep this up, we're not going to be in with a chance of winning this Rumble, because we're going to take our eyes off the ball again and we're going to get eliminated.
Well, Dave the Rave Desire, if that's what he was thinking, was totally wrong, because he was next to go. Joey Hayes eliminating Dave the Rave Desire.
Well, that's just Joey and his ring smart, isn't it? You know, Joey is a seasoned professional. He knows every inch of that ring. He is a true ring veteran, and he wasn't going to sit back and watch crap like this going on in the ring. You know, he's got a Rumble to win, he's got a title to win, and he's not going to sit back and watch three idiots dancing around for the crowd's enjoyment. We do have a curfew, Max. We couldn't be there all night.
That was then followed, I'm not going to go into this conversation with you, Chris. That was then followed by Don Micho's entrance, who must have took pity on Dave Desire outside the ring by himself, because then he immediately got rid of Disco Bert.
Well, good riddance, I say, Max. You know, they can carry on their sordid little affair backstage, away from my eyes and away from your eyes.
Then Taboo, Don Micho, and Joey Hayes tried to eliminate Frankie Sloan. This was the next point I wanted to make. However, Frankie Sloan, a 20-year veteran of this business, manages to fight off all three of them, Chris.
Yeah, Frankie Sloan there showing his years of ring experience, shall we say. I mean, I think I caught a cheeky rake to the eyes there. I'm not entirely sure. You know, I know it's anything goes in a Royal Rumble, and it's whatever it takes to win. And I kind of applaud Frankie for that, because, you know, we saw that he has that professional conduct under a regular match, but when it's anything goes, you gotta get a job done, Max. You've got to win that Rumble. You've got to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, you do. You've got to use every technique that you've ever learned if you want to become that number one contender, Chris. The next highlight for me, Chris, was Dylan Roberts absolutely mangling Max Fox with a huge kick, whilst Matt Fox was on the top turnbuckle, kicking him right down to the floor and out of the match.
Yeah, unlucky for Foxy. What a great wrestler Matt Fox is. Clearly not entirely experienced in the Rumble type of match. At what he was doing on the top rope, I honestly don't know. It's not something you would normally see Matt Fox do. I think, it cost him in this instance, I'm afraid, and that's disappointing.
Then, of course, soon after that, Chris, Danny Hope makes his entrance into the Rumble and just makes a beeline, as you would imagine, for Joey Hayes. And these two go at it like hammer and tongs.
Yeah, that is something we have... obviously, they've had this boiling over for years and years now. It is a long-standing feud. And I think that, this is what I said earlier. Joey, I think, kind of ignited a fire under Danny earlier in the night by interfering in that match. And I think that wasn't a very wise move, because I don't think traditionally entering a Royal Rumble, Danny Hope would have been quite so aggressive. But I think that due to the nature of what happened earlier, he was already, he just lost it and they just went at it. And this is something, obviously, which repeated throughout the match. This was not the end of it by any stretch.
Well, Chris, Don Micho kind of comes to Joey Hayes' rescue here and eliminates Danny Hope out of the match. Danny Hope then pulls Joey Hayes out of the ring, under the ropes, and they begin to brawl on the stage. Now, this is where things get interesting, Chris. Dean McManus then makes his entrance into the Rumble. He is then eliminated straight away by Frankie Sloan. Myself and Johnny busy on the stage trying to separate Danny Hope and Joey Hayes. We don't see what's going on. Phil Dixon, the referee Phil Dixon, the only referee at ringside, then takes it upon himself to allow Dean McManus back into the ring and carry on in the Rumble match, Chris.
Well, I will get to that in just a moment, Max, but I just quickly want to touch on something you said there about Danny Hope and Don Micho. I have to say, I applaud Don Micho for eliminating Danny Hope in short order, because to be quite honest, Max, someone like Joey Hayes does not need to be dealing with a hothead like Danny Hope in a Rumble situation. Don Micho saw this, wanted to give Joey Hayes the best possible chance he had in this Rumble match, because yeah, it's every man for himself, but you got to look out for each other at the same time. Danny Hope was unstable. Don Micho eliminated Danny Hope, did the right thing. Unfortunately, as you say, that just wasn't enough for Danny. He pulls Joey out, luckily under the ropes, therefore not eliminating Joey Hayes. And they're brawling. Now, what I will say to you here, Max, touching on Dean McManus, is I kind of disappointed in yourself. And Johnny to an extent, but more so you, Max, being head referee of Britannia Wrestling Promotions. I am disappointed that you took your eyes off the ring for long enough of a period of time that a wrestler was able to get eliminated from the match, get up and back into the match, and nobody saw it. I mean, honestly...
Right. I'll stop you right there, Chris, before you piss me off anymore. Number one, I can only call what I see. Number two, if it wasn't for your good friend Johnny Goodman, referee Johnny Goodman, if it wasn't for his incompetence, he should have been able to deal with Joey Hayes and Danny Hope by himself, leaving me at ringside. He couldn't. I had to go and help him. So don't be giving me the heat for this, Chris. You want to be piling this heat right up on Johnny B. Goodman.
I'll agree with you, Max. Johnny is an experience as a referee. He's still relatively new as a referee. But as head referee yourself, Max, should it not be more important to focus on what is going on legally inside the sanctioned match rather than what is going on outside the ring?
The most important thing to me is the safety of everyone involved.
Max,
even if they're outside of the ring, safety is paramount, Chris. You know that. You've been through the training. Don't be coming here giving me that type of shit.
The safety of the fans. Max, did I see you running around ringside when fucking Noah and Pyro were brawling, and Grod, did I see you running around protecting the fans there? Did I? Fuck, Max, you were watching the match.
I kept my eye on them too. I could see exactly what they were doing, and if things looked as if they were going to get far too dangerous, I would have been there without a shadow of a doubt, Chris. Don't be giving me that. I'm telling you now, you're pissing me off.
All I'm going to say, Max, on this Dean McManus situation, and I can't see how anyone could disagree with this, it's only cheating if you get caught. And attention was not where it needed to be. Therefore, Dean McManus and Phil Dixon took advantage of your lack of attention and exploited that. Whether that's morally right or not, that's up in arms, Max. I'm not going to question that. But the fact that neither yourself nor Johnny caught this is well, it speaks for itself, really. I mean, really, you only have yourselves to blame.
Right, we'll move on before I say something that I'm going to regret, Chris. Okay? Because you're pissing me right off.
Max, the facts speak for themselves. You weren't paying attention.
Listen, what's happened has happened. It can't be changed. Now shut up about it. I don't want to discuss it anymore. The next thing that happened, Chris, the next thing that comes to my mind anyway, was the elimination of Frankie Sloan by Dean McManus. The man had only just been eliminated and then allowed back in to the ring. Frankie Sloan went fucking bananas. He went apeshit. He went batshit crazy. And he even challenged me as I was ejecting him from ringside. He even challenged me to a fight, Chris. Luckily for Frankie Sloan, I don't fight OAPs.
I tell you what, Max, between Frankie and Danny Hope, there must have been something in the water in Liverpool that evening, because all Dean McManus was doing there was he dodged a bullet once, and he was just cleaning up the evidence to make sure that he wasn't going to get caught out twice, because Dean McManus is a smart, seasoned professional wrestler. He might make a mistake, but he's damn sure not going to make the same mistake twice.
No, he won't make that same mistake again, will he, Chris? And, of course, he dodged a huge bullet there. So moving on from that, Chris, Rio accidentally eliminates Taboo. The Island Brothers here, teammates. One accidentally eliminates the other. What will come of this, Chris? Who knows?
Well, again, Max, like I said, they're seasoned tag team professionals. They're not used to singles action. They're not used to kind of a every man for himself kind of mentality. Much like I said about the band earlier, and much like maybe even them Talents boys are in a similar situation there. Maybe miscommunication, I don't know. But, they are your current tag team champions. I mean, they have that still going for them. So, they don't need to worry about the world title, Max, because they will be tag team champions probably indefinitely. As long as they want to hold those belts, they will be tag team champions. So they don't have much to worry about. It would have been nice to have an Island brother as the world champion. I mean, they've been so successful as a tag team champions. Could you imagine if one of them was the world champion and the other was backing them up? They would be unstoppable. But it is what it is, and that is not to be.
Yeah, well, it wasn't going to happen because shortly after that, Dylan Roberts actually eliminates Taboo.
Well, like I said, Max, they're tag team wrestlers. That's what they focus on. That is why they are successful champions.
Drew Parker then enters, and he was on absolute fire, Chris. He was firing on all cylinders. He almost eliminates Joey Hayes.
Yeah, and thank God he didn't, Max, because Joey Hayes by this point was well on his way to becoming, well, I would say it's probably the longest participant in the match. I mean, he'd been in there since number 1, and we were nearing the end of the match by this point, so I'm glad that wasn't the case. Yeah,
it's just a testament to Drew Parker as well, because Drew Parker is one of the finest young wrestlers there is in the country right now. And for him to be able to almost eliminate Joey Hayes, one of the most established wrestlers in the country, is a real good testament to the amount of skill and dedication that Drew Parker puts into professional wrestling.
Yeah, obviously, Drew Parker, only, can you believe it, 18 years of age. The amount of experience this guy has already is just impressive. I really think this kid's got a bright future with BWP.
Yeah, without a doubt. The next thing that I want to talk about, Chris, and this is a huge one, especially considering the amount of time that you spend with the red right hand, is Don Micho eliminating Dave Del Vecchio. Is this the implosion of the red right hand, Chris, or did they have a understanding between them of every man for himself? What happened, Chris? What happened, Chris? You should know more about this than me, mate.
I honestly don't think so, Max. I don't think this is the Red Right Hand imploding, as you put it. I don't think this is the Red Right Hand disbanding, as you put it. I think as a unit that have been going as long as they have and as successful as they have, they wouldn't allow a miscommunication like this to come between them. As we say, Max, there is honour amongst thieves, and let's just say I think they had an understanding backstage. As you say, it is every man for himself.
Well, Dave Del Vecchio was fuming on the outside of the ring just after he was eliminated by Don Micho, Chris. Absolute fuming, really barking at Filthy Woodbine to the extent that Filthy Woodbine actually slaps Dave Del Vecchio and then does a runner. And Dave Del Vecchio gives chase. And they went backstage, never seen them again.
I'll say this much. Being a former, very successful PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion, I think if a sacrifice was to be made between the two, either Dave Del Vecchio or Don Micho, I think the understanding would be is that Don Micho would go ahead and go for that title. Because what I think happened here, Max, I think there was a situation where if it had to be one of the two, if it came down to it, Dave Del Vecchio or Don Micho, if one of those two was to go on to become PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion, the answer is simple. It would be your former champion, successful champion, Don Micho. I think that is the situation, the understanding they came to backstage, and if Dave Del Vecchio wants to lose his cool and lose his bottle at the last minute and get cold feet, well, that is not Don Micho's problem, because Don Micho, if he has a plan, as we've seen a 1,000 times before, he will stick to that plan and get it done. Whether Dave Del Vecchio likes it or not, the red right hand will continue. And even if the red right hand has to continue without Dave Del Vecchio, so be it. Because Dave Del Vecchio, if they did have a plan, Dave Del Vecchio potentially fucked that plan up in the middle of a Royal Rumble, and that is not something that Don Micho needs to be dealing with. So if you ask me, Max, Don Micho kind of did the right thing.
Well, he didn't get much further because he was then shortly eliminated by a huge dropkick from Drew Parker, Chris.
Well, you know, like I just said, Max, Dave Del Vecchio wants to screw up the situation and have essentially a hissy fit outside the ring. Okay, if Don Micho's not paying attention because Dave is screaming at Don or Phil or basically trying to distract Don, it's not his fault if he's taking his eye off the prize and gets drop kicked out the ring. That is not Don Micho's fault. That is Dave Del Vecchio's fault. And I tell you what, I'm sure there were words had backstage after this match between the three of them especially. And I tell you what, if Dave Del Vecchio was not there, if Dave Del Vecchio did not have that conversation, that discussion with Don Micho, there will be consequences because you do not mess with the red right hand.
So following this, Chris, Troy McCarthy enters the Royal Rumble. He enters with a foam finger and knocks everyone down in the ring with this foam finger, using a technique known as the foam finger of doom.
To be honest, having watched Frankie earlier in the match and his, shall we say, unique techniques for elimination, honestly, I'm surprised he didn't stick that finger up one of their asses to eliminate them, but I think he kind of missed the ball on that one, to be honest. I mean, fucking hell, did you see the size of that finger?
I know you would have been excited by the size of that finger, Chris.
Mate, I wasn't confusing Johnny this time. I saw the look on your face. You were fucking gagging for it.
I was not gagging for it at all. I was merely showing my pleasure at what Troy McCarthy was doing it. In fact, I was laughing my head off.
Ah, you were showing your pleasure. Ah, so you found it a very pleasurable experience watching Troy, finger everyone with his foam hand. I see. Okay, Max. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that little insight. That's very
more humorous than pleasurable, let's say.
Well, we can rewind the footage, Max. You did say pleasurable, so. But I think we'll leave that one there. I think you said enough on the topic.
Okay, so the next topic I want to speak about is Sean Only makes his debut, his BWP debut here at the Grand Central Rumble. He comes in and he starts lighting everyone up with kicks. He obviously has a background in martial arts, and I am looking forward to seeing what else Sean Only brings to the BWP, Chris.
I gotta be honest, I like this Sean Only, Max. It's the first time for me. I've not seen him work before. I was very impressed with what I saw. I think that he's going to be a real force to be reckoned with within the ranks of the BWP, and I think that he is going to have a very successful time in BWP based on what I saw in that ring. Like you say, Max. Clearly some kind of mixed martial arts background there. Very skilled, very, very skilled with his kicks.
Educated feet, one might say, Chris. Educated feet.
Well, there we go, Max. Educated feet. And I look forward to seeing what Sean Only is going to bring to the table. I think we're going to see some really impressive action and, maybe even a title on the horizon because he seems, one stray kick from him and you're going to be out like a light.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Chris. His feet, like you said, educated feet, his kicks, they look dangerous. In a good way, of course. I think he will find much success with the technique that he employs. The next point, Chris, is David North, the BBC Radio Merseyside producer of the Billy Butler Show, enters the Rumble. Well, I say enters. He basically shit himself, Chris. He couldn't get in there. He was scared. He was like a little child. And I know he shit himself because on his way back out from the ringside area, he passed me and I could smell it.
Well, I will tell you something, Max. Apart from Roughneck and his spear, I fear no man, as I said before. But from one producer to another, I have a lot of respect for this Dave North because he understood. He knew his role, much like myself, and he knew that he took one look in that ring and he realised, no, fuck this. I value my life more than getting into this Rumble. God forbid, could you imagine if he'd won the thing and managed to go one-on-one with the babyface Pitbull? That would have been interesting.
It would have been like a David Arquette moment all over again, wouldn't it?
Except, Max, we're not stupid enough to put him over as world champion. I hope. But, like I say, that didn't happen. He's a very smart individual, and like I said, I have a lot of respect for that. Yeah, you could say he shot himself, he chickened out, he was a pussy. I could use that term, he was a pussy, but end of the day, like I say, he's smart. He understood, I do not want to risk my life getting into this ring. I am not a trained professional wrestler, and he took the high road, and I kind of have to compliment him for that.
Yeah, I think he made the right decision. It's not for everyone. It is a very dangerous sport. I think he made the right decision.
As I said, Max, he's not a trained professional wrestler. I mean, we've seen what happens when untrained professional wrestlers get in that ring, Max. I mean, I have watched your match recently with Dan Evans, so that kind of speaks for itself. So I think he would
remind you that I won that match.
Well, I'll give you some credit, Max. Technically, it wasn't a match, it was a fight. It wasn't a wrestling match. But, you needed a lot of help. You needed a lot of help, let's be honest. It wasn't, shall we say, a clean victory.
I won that match even after receiving the Celtic Cross from Danzig.
Well, let's just say you couldn't have done it on your own, Max. Like I said, you know your role, you understand, you're just a referee, Max, you're just a head referee, yeah, and a good referee, but you're just a referee, and you wouldn't make the mistake of trying to, well, I would say you wouldn't make the mistake of trying to enter a Rumble, but
I've done that before as well.
As history would show, you're not exactly the smartest tool in the box, but all the credit to you, Max. You do your best, but I mean, how many Royal Rumbles have you won?
I don't know. I'm waiting for you to answer. How many have I won?
Okay, you don't want to answer that, Max. I'll tell you how many Rumbles you've won. You have won 0.
Yeah, well, I'm nothing if not consistent, Chris.
Yeah, well, I suppose you do have that going for you, Max. You do try your best, bless you, but you stick to being a referee. A referee that takes his eye off the ball sometimes, and
fuck you! How many fucking videos have you fucked up?
Max, I tell you, any videos I fuck up,
I can tell you what, you fucked up more videos than I've won fucking Rumbles. That's for sure.
Let's just say, Max, a worker never blames his tools. However, a worker can blame those that provide him with the tools. That is all I will say on the situation.
Oh, Steve Saxon is going to listen to this. He's going to be fucking fuming.
Max, there's a reason I am currently staring at my wonderful 2016 Secret Superhero Award, and might I add that this is now an official award as part of the BWP Awards Bash. And I hope, Max, that with this being an official award now, I will receive my second trophy this year at the Awards Bash, and I will become a 2-time Slammy Award winner, just like the late, great Owen Hart, because I'm not a nugget, I'm a soul survivor! Woo! Well, I got a pop.
We've got a...
I'll take it.
Ace. Absolutely ace. You fucking nugget. Okay, so that was then followed by Miles Johnson's entrance into the Rumble. Before he got into the ring, though, Chris, he started to cut a promo, and no one could hear him. What was going on, mate? This is your domain, and you're fucking it up again.
Like I said to you earlier, Max, our Liverpool shows for the time being, I am not working alone. Unfortunately, we know how good of a job I do when I'm working alone. This time, like I said, I had some external assistance. Someone, I had basically a monkey in charge of the volume levels for the show. Not my problem, Max. I think you'll find that all cues were absolutely perfectly timed. There was not a cue out of place. So if there's an issue with the microphone levels, I suggest you take it up with Dome management. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you're only doing half a job then, are you, Chris? Well, maybe we should just take half of that award away from you, hey?
I'm doing what I'm contractually obligated to do, Max. Like I said, I know my role. I do not want to, so we say, politic, as we like to say in the business. I know my role, and I am 100% deserving of my second Slammy Award this year, and I think you will find that I brought my trophy with me to the Dome last week, and I will be bringing my second trophy to the Dome, and I will have them both right there. So any member of the BWP faithful that happens to glance over at me doing my amazing job will see that I have my 2 Slammies right there, and they will understand that is the BWP seal of approval. You know you are getting the best fucking tech guy in British professional wrestling. Thank you very much.
Have you finished putting yourself over, Chris? Can we get back to the point at hand?
For now, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Miles Johnson cuts his promo, enters the ring, eats a huge insecurity from Dylan Roberts for his troubles, before Dylan Roberts eliminates him. To Billy Butler's delight, because the promo he was cutting was against Billy Butler.
Well, one thing I will say, Miles Johnson, the honourable Miles Johnson, Max, might I add, I have a lot of respect for him. Being a Tory, I think he is a wonderful, righteous human being. The only thing I will say to Miles Johnson is perhaps you shouldn't have, cut your promo or done, had your shoot. Maybe you shouldn't have done that whilst you were actually in the ring. Maybe you should have waited and then got in the ring, because clearly, like I said, you fuck around in the Rumble, you take your eyes off the ball, and you're going to pay for it. And unfortunately, you think he would have noticed earlier and not done the same mistake that everyone else did, but clearly not, Miles. I think, you're a newcomer to us here at BWP, and I think you need to just get up your ring smarts a little bit and pay attention in that ring, and you'll go far, mate. I think you are an outstanding individual, and it's an injustice that he didn't go that little bit further.
So once Miles Johnson had been eliminated, number 30 Dave Faulkner enters the Rumble, and Troy McCarthy decides to go toe-to-toe with the UFC legend, Liverpool's UFC legend. This was, in my opinion, a crazy move on Troy's part. He did end up getting eliminated. He threw many punches at Dave Faulkner. Dave Faulkner just stood there like a beast and just ate them all.
Well, I said to you earlier, Max, Dave Faulkner really transitioning into professional wrestling. He is an absolute force to be reckoned with. And, if he's able to take down the red right hand, what chances does someone like a Troy McCarthy have? I mean, let's be honest, Troy McCarthy, he wants to have fun. He wants to make wrestling fun. It's rock and roll, And I don't think you can take that kind of approach with someone like Dave Faulkner. I mean, you need to be on your A game because you will get fucked up.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened to Troy McCarthy, Chris. He got fucked up and then he got eliminated by Dave Faulkner. Okay, so following Troy's demise at the hands of Dave Faulkner then goes on to eliminate Sonny Durham with a huge roundhouse kick to the head, Chris.
To be honest, I kind of thought Sonny would have learned his lesson and not gone after Dave Faulkner after what happened to him earlier. I mean, like you said, he got dropped on his head. Not exactly the smartest thing to do, and obviously he just was literally, that kick was just, fuck me. I tell you what, Dave Faulkner, I don't know what his plans are in professional wrestling. I don't know if he plans to come back to BWP. I don't know if he plans to stick around. But I tell you what, anyone that gets in the ring with him, you just stay the fuck away from Dave Faulkner because you're gonna get fucked up. Like Troy, I mean, was he not watching what happened to Troy?
I don't know. He must have been. They were in the same ring, 16 by 16, Chris. He must have seen it.
Well, like I said, poor Sonny, I mean, obviously, if it wasn't for Dave Del Vecchio screwing up the Red Right Hand's plans, potentially, and getting himself eliminated earlier in the match, maybe he would have been there to have Sonny's back, but that's unfortunately another consequence that came from this, and I'm sure that Dave Del Vecchio will be reprimanded by the Red Right Hand for his actions, because at the end of the day, you could potentially blame Sonny's elimination on him.
Well, you can, I won't.
Of course you won't, Max, because just because something seems a little bit untoward or not quite by the book or the way Max Davis would go about it, you automatically just cannot agree, even though you know deep down, Max, that I do have a point.
Really, you've got a point.
Whether you want to admit it or not. But, like I said, the actions speak for themselves, and Sonny was eliminated. That's a shame, but that's how it is.
Dave Faulkner was in beast mode, Chris, because shortly after that, Dave Faulkner went on to eliminate Sean Only with a low bridge as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that Sean Only's kicks were a force to be reckoned with, but then, of course, we see what Dave Faulkner has to offer, and oh man, could you imagine Dave Faulkner taking on Sean Only? What a match that would be. Like you say, educated feet is an understatement.
Yeah, indeed. Beast mode didn't really last much longer for Dave Faulkner, though, Chris, as he was then eliminated by Dean McManus, leaving the final 4 participants in the ring being Dylan Roberts, Dean McManus, Drew Parker, and number 1 entrant, Joey Hayes.
And this is the point, Max, where I looked at the ring and I saw who the final 4 were, and I thought, Joey Hayes coming in at number 1. He lasted 29 other entrants, and he's there in the final 4. I have to be honest with you, Max. I honestly thought that Joey Hayes had this one in the bag. I honestly thought he was going to go the distance, and he was going to be your winner. It's just a shame, the situation that happened following this, and I'm sure you're going to have great pleasure in telling our listeners about it.
Yeah, there was a huge Tower of Doom manoeuvre out of the corner, Chris, involving Drew Parker, Dylan Roberts, and Joey Hayes. It was a huge, huge manoeuvre, and I don't envy any one of those three fellas.
I mean, it begs the question, Max, a tandem offense like that, why would you even risk putting your body on the line to set up something like that and attempt to incapacitate your other opponents, while at the same time potentially really running the risk of severely injuring yourself with a move like that when you're in the final 4 of a Rumble?
I don't know. It's just one of those things. You've got to do what you got to do in a Rumble match, Chris. Dylan Roberts was setting up for a superplex on Drew Parker, and Joey Hayes interjected and put Dylan Roberts into the powerbomb position for the Tower of Doom. It was a wise move on Joey Hayes' part, I think, Chris, because he soon went on to eliminate Drew Parker.
Yeah, and as I was alluding to a moment ago, Max, your final 3, Joey Hayes, Dylan Roberts, and Dean McManus. And, having endured everything that he had gone through to get to this point, all my bets were on Joey Hayes going the distance. And I honestly thought that with relative ease, by this point, he would be able to outlast Dylan Roberts and Dean McManus and become the sole survivor and the last man standing. But unfortunately, Max, and like I said, you're going to have great pleasure in telling our listeners exactly what happened. That didn't quite go to plan for Joey.
No, Joey was then eliminated from the Rumble by a returning Danny Hope. By returning, I mean returning to the ring, not returning to action. Of course, he had been in action earlier on that evening. He slipped into the ring. He managed to get past myself, Johnny B. Goodman, and Phil Dixon. He then proceeded to eliminate Joey Hayes from the match. Them two then brawled again all over the stage. Pandemonium ensued between myself and Johnny B. Goodman. We didn't know whether to shit or wind our watch. We had no idea what was going on, and that left only Dylan Roberts and Dean McManus in the ring, the final 2.
Well, let me say one thing to start, Max. That, to me, was an absolute disgrace and an absolute injustice. A man, Danny Hope, already eliminated fairly from the Rumble, decides, oh no, I've not had enough. I'm going to come back and I'm going to fuck up Joey's Rumble chances. Now, you tell me, I've got a question for you, Max. Talk about an injustice. Where were you? How did he get past you?
I was watching the action in the ring, Chris, as I should have been.
I don't know what,
Max. He managed to slip past. And anyway, Chris, you must remember, this is a Rumble match. There isn't many other rules other than being thrown over the top rope with both feet touching the floor to be eliminated. There isn't many other rules anyway, Chris. So by doing what he did, in essence, Danny Hope didn't actually do anything wrong or against the rules of the match.
With all due respect, Max, regardless of the fact that, yes, I understand, once your feet touch that floor, you are eliminated, regardless of how that happens. Regardless of that fact, Max, since you did such a shit job at enforcing any outside goings on throughout the rest of the match, it just saddens me that you weren't paying attention to that. If you were looking at that ring and you saw Danny Hope go in between those ropes, why did you not immediately dive into that, or he's not in the ring, but why did you not at least try and enforce the rules and get him out of there as quickly as possible? This man
had been so quickly, Chris. I did what I did, okay? I was doing what my job entails. I was enforcing the rules of the match. What Danny Hope did isn't against the rules of the match. What do you expect me to do? I can't just make up rules, Chris.
I would expect this kind of behaviour from an inexperienced referee, Max. But being a seasoned head referee such as yourself, I would expect better. I would expect better enforcement on your behalf. I mean, are you honestly not disappointed in yourself that you allowed this to happen? Because this is an injustice to Joey Hayes. This is you've seen on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter and all over the internet since this show. It's all I've seen. Hashtag justice for Joey. Because people understand, Max, that this was not supposed to happen, that you allowed this to happen. And I gotta say, a lot of the responsibility of this happening falls on your shoulders, I'm afraid. Because if it wasn't for you not paying full attention to what was going on in that ring and being the head referee that you're supposed to be, Joey Hayes would still be in that match. And let's be honest, Max, he'd survived from the number one position. There's a very good chance that he would be your current number one contender. Are you not disappointed in yourself?
No, because I did what I do. I enforced the rules, Chris. Get that into your tiny little production head. I did what I am supposed to do, and I enforced the rules.
You enforced the rules. You enforced the rules, Max. Well,
I did.
That's
Listen,
very.
Joey Hayes was eliminated. Doesn't matter how he was eliminated. He was eliminated. He was then taken backstage. Okay, with a little bit of help from Danny Hope, but he was taken backstage and he was ejected from the match.
And as if it wasn't bad enough, Max. I mean, you took him fucking 10 minutes to pull him apart last time. You saw what happened this time. As if adding insult to injury, adding insult to injury. You just stand there and let Danny Hope fucking beat him from pillar to post around the ringside for another 10 minutes. And you want to talk about doing your job as a referee and enforcing the rules, Max. Well,
hey, I tell you what, you fucking nugget. You couldn't do my job. You can't even do my job after 10 years experience. Okay? So don't be coming here giving me heat. I did what I'm supposed to do.
What makes you think you could do my job, Max? You can't even reach the fucking control desk.
I could do your job, you fucking nugget.
I tell you what, Max. You want to talk about enforcing the rules? Okay, enforcing the rules. Why don't we just calm things down a minute? Because I think we have a very important situation we need to discuss here, and you want to talk about enforcing the rules. Well, why don't you tell our listeners what happened next?
Right, okay. So whilst myself and Johnny B. Goodman were backstage dealing with Joey Hayes and Danny Hope, Dylan Roberts catches Dean McManus with a cutter out of absolutely nowhere, throws Dean over the top rope. He was then caught and saved by referee Phil Dixon. After a few choice words from Dylan to referee Phil, Dean throws Dylan over the top rope whilst Phil pulls the top rope down. Phil then immediately jumps into the ring and declares Dean McManus as the winner of the Grand Central Rumble.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Max. Like I said, since you weren't there to pay attention to it, you say he caught Dean McManus and put him back. I would more abruptly like to say, I don't think he was catching him, Max. I think he was trying to prevent him injuring himself. Because if Dean McManus had fallen over the top rope in that manner, he could have caused himself with serious injury. And Phil Dixon was smart enough as a responsible referee to try and protect the man and stop him from getting seriously injured.
Stop.
Seriously injured. And I'll tell you what, Max, you want to go and say, me and Johnny B. Good,
myself over that.
I'll tell you what, Max, you want to say, myself and Johnny B. Goodman were taking Joey and Johnny Joey and Danny backstage. I'll tell you what, Max, there are guys backstage, there are agents, there are guys that can handle that situation with. You should be taking your eyes and keeping them on the ring. Yourself and Johnny B. Goodman, well, Johnny must be a Johnny B. shit referee, because clearly you weren't paying attention to what was going on in that ring, because if you had been watching that ring, you wouldn't have let that happen. okay? Regardless of whether it should have happened or not, you weren't doing your job. And neither was Johnny. And you cannot deny that. I don't think there's anything wrong with what happened there. Like I said, Dean McManus could be crippled right now. He could have severely injured his back the way he was falling out that ring. And Phil Dixon made a judgment call to try and save his friend from injuring himself. And yeah, you might interpret that as cheating or bending the rules. Well, I don't think so, Max. Just because Dylan Roberts took it upon himself to grab hold of that sanctioned referee for the match, and put his hands on this sanctioned referee, he cost himself the match. If you ask me, Phil Dixon should be head referee, because Phil Dixon was being a professional.
You don't want to go down that road. Do not go down that road with me, Chris. I will march down to fucking Denby with my little size 8 fucking trainers on my feet and shove my foot right up your ass.
Phil Dixon was being a sanctioned professional wrestling referee, and where were you? You were backstage fucking playing with Danny and Joey. Well, that's great. That's great fun for you and Johnny be shit referee. That's brilliant. Great. You do that. You go backstage. But what you're doing there, Max, is essentially you are basically tarnishing the end of the Rumble match, because this would not have happened if it wasn't for you. You have to admit that. You cannot deny that. And I don't care what anyone says. Dean McManus is a rightful winner of the Rumble match, and he is your number one contender, and there's no disputing that. We don't have an instant replay rule here in BWP, okay? He won that match fair and square. Like you say, anything goes. Both feet hit the floor, anything goes. Dean McManus' feet did not hit that floor. Phil Dixon prevented his feet from touching that floor, therefore Dean McManus was not eliminated.
No, you're right, Chris. Dean wasn't eliminated, but he should have been if Phil Dixon hadn't have assisted him. That's the second time during that match that Phil Dixon had assisted him. And I know for certain that both incidents of the assistance of referee Phil Dixon to Dean McManus will be coming in front of the BWP management team for discussion and even some punishment for the actions of what happened. End of. I'm not going to discuss it with you. You're still pissing me off.
Max, is Phil Dixon going to be taken to wrestlers' court? Oh, Max, I tell you what, if anything, you and Johnny should be taken to wrestlers' court for being incompetent referees, not doing your job properly. That's what should happen.
Chris, I'm giving you your final warning. Shut the fuck up.
All I'm going to say to you, Max,
shut up. The nuts and bolts are the winner and the new number one contender to Pitbull's PWI BWP World Catchweight Champion is Dean McManus.
There we go. Thank you, Max. That's all I wanted from you. Your winner, Dean McManus. Now, can we get on to this statement, Max? Because really, I need to read this out because I think it needs to be said.
Yes, we have indeed received a statement from the BWP office regarding a few of the incidents that occurred at the Grand Central Rumble. It's very important that this is published and understood by all of the BWP faithful. So, Chris, please proceed.
Okay, so the following statement was sent to us earlier today by BWP owner and founder Steve Saxon. I would like to address some of the comments and concerns made online by several members of the BWP faithful following last week's show in Liverpool, the Grand Central Rumble. Many fans have taken to social media to vent their frustrations regarding Dean McManus' win of the Rumble main event, as well as the actions by both Joey Hayes and Danny Hope throughout the evening. I will address these separately. Dean McManus entered the Rumble match during an outside altercation between Joey Hayes and Danny Hope. 2 or 3 sanctioned referees were trying to handle the outside situation during McManus' entrance into the match, where he was immediately eliminated over the top rope with both feet clearly hitting the venue floor at the hands of Frankie Sloan. The third referee, Mr. Phil Dixon, witnessed this elimination and proceeded to direct Dean McManus back into the ring, where he went on to eliminate Frankie Sloan and numerous other competitors before ultimately winning the Rumble match to be crowned the number one contender to the PWI BWP World Catchweight Championship. As in any sport, the referee's decision is final and referees can only act upon what they see. As 2 of the 3 referees were preoccupied with a separate situation, the sole remaining referee, Phil Dixon, was well within his rights to call the shots, and individually his colleagues were able to return to ringside. Although it is not common practice for a referee to allow an eliminated wrestler to return to the match, that was the referee's decision at the time, therefore Dean McManus continued the match with the referee's blessing. It would be unfair to discipline McManus for following instruction from a sanctioned official, and his number one contender spot remains. However, I shall be conducting an investigation into why referee Phil Dixon allowed Dean McManus to re-enter the Rumble match, following an obvious elimination. We expect our officiating team to conduct themselves in a professional and impartial manner at all times. Details of this investigation will be made public once a decision has been reached by BWP management. The evening-long fiasco between Joey Hayes and Danny Hope is not a lot different to that of the situation of Dean McManus. Joey Hayes involved himself in the singles match between Danny Hope and Dylan Roberts, causing Dylan to lose the match via disqualification. As a result, I personally placed Joey as the number one entrant into the Rumble match as form of punishment for his unacceptable behaviour. Some of the Britannia fans have stated that they want justice for Joey, as he was punished 4 times. The only disciplinary action taken against Joey Hayes was entering him into the Rumble as entrant number 1. The spinebuster from Dylan Roberts was not a punishment, but one would assume it was a form of receipt from Dylan for Joey causing him a loss in his singles match with Danny Hope. It has also been stated that by Danny Hope attacking Joey during his own entrance into the Rumble was also a form of punishment. To this I simply point out that the notion of any Rumble match is that it is every man for himself, and Danny Hope did no wrong in gunning for Joey Hayes within a sanctioned match. The 4th and final punishment, as stated by the fans, is that Danny Hope was allowed to re-enter the Rumble after he had been eliminated and cost Joey Hayes a potential Rumble win in the process. Again, this is not a punishment, although it is not written in the rules of Rumble that it is frowned upon for a previously eliminated wrestler to re-enter the match. However, 2 rules of a Rumble match are in order to be eliminated, a wrestler needs to go over the top rope and both of his feet must hit the venue floor. As Joey was thrown over the top rope and both of his feet did hit the floor, confirmed by all 3 ringside referees, his elimination was within the rules and guidelines of a Rumble match, regardless of how it transpired. The referees work very hard to try and ensure that eliminated wrestlers do not re-enter the match nor cause any disruption to the match. There is no written rules against these actions, and Britannia Wrestling Promotions referees are limited in what they are physically able to do to prevent a re-entry. It would be wrong to punish Danny Hope for technically breaking no rules. I understand that this may not be the response that some members of the BWP faithful will be looking for, but as I have explained, both Dean McManus and Danny Hope were working within the rules, guidelines and boundaries within their own separate situations. Furthermore, the ongoing saga between Danny Hope and Joey Hayes will be dealt with by BWP management ahead of our return to Liverpool on Friday the 14th of April, where, at long last, this feud will come to an end, one way or another. Details will be available shortly via the BWP website and social media outlets.
Right, okay, Chris. So now we've had the official BWP statement. That's going to put all arguments to rest, I'm sure. Or will it?
All I'm going to say is this, Max, and I will close on this statement of my own. Hashtag justice for Joey.
Yes, I thought you might say something along those lines. Okay then, smartass, I've got a couple of questions for you. Who made the most eliminations during the Rumble match?
Well, Max, considering that you were the sanctioned referee, at least when you were looking at the ring, I think you'd probably be able to have a more accurate number than I probably could come up with.
I know exactly what the number was, and I know exactly who it was, because I've done my research for this podcast, and clearly you haven't.
Oh, okay, since you want to shoot, cowboy, why don't you tell the BWP faithful who had the most eliminations?
The most eliminations were made by Roughneck, with 4 eliminations.
Okay, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah. Who do you think made the least amount of eliminations?
I'm gonna literally. Oh, I could tell you who made the least amount of eliminations because he lasted about 20 seconds. I would hesitate to guess and say that the man with the least eliminations was one Mr. No Fear, Rye Lloyd.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Yeah, this is a bit of a trick question because I actually made the answer up myself. But because of the way he handled himself and himself within the match, the person who made the least amount of eliminations was David North with -1 because he didn't even get in the ring.
Do you know what, Max? You can be a proper sometimes. So there we have it. I mean, obviously a historic evening for BWP, our biggest show to date. A sellout crowd, epic matches. What more could you possibly ask for? Check it out on demand right now. It is a cracking 2 hours and it's a great show overall. Just before we go, I'd like to plug our next show, which is going to be taking place on Saturday, February the 18th. And that is going to be coming to you from Denby Town Hall. And it is going to be your 2017 El Bandito Memorial Tournament. The details of which are on the BWP Facebook page, so I urge you to go and check them out. The Bandito tournament, of course, is in tribute to the late great Welsh wrestling legend El Bandito Orig Williams, with the winner, of course, becoming the El Bandito Memorial Champion.
Sadly, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for. I'd like to thank you for listening, whether you're in Cardiff, Wales, London, England, Edinburgh, Scotland, or even Tampa, Florida. So don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube and on-demand services. I have been the hardest working and best looking referee in British wrestling history, Max Davis. And of course, alongside me, my co-host and favourite enemy.
Let's not forget the only voice that really matters. CD famously, Chris Dutton.
So until our next episode, ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Back and forths with quite a few people on Facebook and social media over this. I'm sure we're going to get into it later. I have got a lot to say, and I'm sure you have as well, Max.
I have plenty to say. My jaw hit the floor at this point. Was Roughneck pressing Chris Von Sharp over the top rope, just dumping him to the floor like he was a piece of shit, basically. Like he was I don't want to say that. Just dumping him.
Sack of shit.
Oh, yeah. Just dumping him to the floor like a sack of shit, Chris.
Their style of dancing, shall we say, is a little bit different to Sexy Kev's style of dancing. I mean, personally, for me, it's all extremely homo, and I can't say that, can I? Can I say homo? No. He's got a title to win, and he's not going to sit back and watch I can't say three puffs.
Very, very close to eliminating Joey Hayes. I'll just say that again because I had a frog in my throat.
Yeah, a frog. Was that what it was?
Yeah. Wasn't a donkey dick.
A frog with a cock. Massive cock. Mate, I was going down fucking Liverpool High Street with Sax. You were like fucking around doing something the other day. And I had my, he had a coffee. He bought coffee in Mackie D's. Burger King. Was it Burger King? Yeah. So I'm holding this fucking coffee. And I turned to Steve and I was holding it with both hands to keep my hands warm. I turned to Steve and I said, I feel like fucking Paul Bearer holding this urn. And I was like walking around with it like the urn. Maybe he'd walk around with it in front of him. So Sax turns to me and he goes, "Oh, go on, do it." And I said, "What? Do what?" He says, "Oh, go on, do the voice." So I was walking down the fucking Liverpool High Street going, "Oh yes, my Undertaker! Build a casket double wide, double deep." What I didn't do is channel Randy Savage and turn to him and go, "Oh yeah, got a cup of coffee and I gotta slap it to a Slim Jim. Oh yeah, dig it." Which I should have done.
If these don't make it to the outtakes, I'm gonna eat my fucking hat.
They're probably the worst I've ever done as well. Whatever.
Who made the most eliminations during the Rumble match?
Well, Max,
Okay, take it easy.
yeah, okay, take it.
Ta-da.
Cheers, Flicky.
Cheers, donkey.
Ta-da.
How the fuck do I switch your Skype gimmick on? Oh, there we go. Alright, see you, pal. Ta-da.
Ta-da.